Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is Sunday night. It's time for another live stream. I hope you are all safe and well wherever you are in the world. Please do let me know if this is all working as it should be, because I've made some changes on my side. I've updated the firmware on my Rodecaster Pro 2, which has allowed me to do things a little bit differently, and that did potentially mean that you could be getting two audio sources. I don't think you are, but there is the possibility. So I thought I would check at the start of the stream. Hopefully it is this microphone that's working as well. I'm just going to move it away. I'm assuming you can hear me quieter now. Just making sure it is the right one. It should be this one that's working. Just making sure, yep, perfect. So it's actually working as expected. Because it's like all of these things. Whenever you make a change, it's not always the case that it works as expected. And the big change actually I've made is I've now separated off the two microphones onto two different channels. So rather than me actually switching between the mics, which is this one, and the studio mic, which is there, they now both actually go in on different channels. And I record both of them, but I then have the ability to swap between them. But on the live stream, I've told it to only use the one. And the reason I've done this is there are times where I've made content and forgot to switch the microphones after a live stream. It usually happens after a Sunday because I generally don't use this mic for making the content. I use this one for the live stream now. And I forgot to do it. And I can literally record half a video and realize that this is over there. And all I've got on the video is this. Hello there. Yes, this does this does that. And it's working like that. So I've now hopefully solved that problem moving forward. A quality of life change is what I would call it. So anyway, now that we know everything is working, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and hello to everyone in the chat. Now, let me just bring up the live chat because I've lost it. There it is. Hello to everyone. Quadfather, I saw you. I saw Dave there as well. How are you? Robert Nelson, I'm not going to get through everyone. We will say hello to you all, and I will wish you all the very best. So, this week, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about Orqa, and there's actually some new products from Orqa that really are not for us. However, I'm going to talk about them anyway, and I have actually had a conversation with Orqa this week, and what we will just talk about is what we spoke about those new products. Not a lot of info that isn't there, but really we'll just talk a little bit about that as well. We're going to talk a bit about DJI 3 and what does start to appear to be a bit of a bug in its behavior, and that is, in the event of signal loss, how well it recovers. And this is starting to become a bit of an issue. So we're going to have to talk about this. We'll also talk about a couple of other things as we go along as well, as always. Now, for those of you who are new here, welcome to the stream. If you're not a subscriber, please do make sure you hit the button. This, as always, will be a question and answer session, and we'll do that a bit towards the end. I'll answer questions on any of the segments we move through. If you do want to make sure your question gets seen, you are more than welcome to use the super chat option, although it isn't actually required. I will always try to answer any question that I can. So, the first thing to talk about, and we're going to go to the desktop on this one, and that is this. That is Orqa FPV, because they have released some new products. Now, Ivan had put a post up on Facebook, which is this one here, showing us some interesting things. So if I click on this, we can see a new set of goggles in the background. There's an ESC. There's what appears to be a flight controller. But what got everyone really excited was this. This little box down here. Could this be the digital FPV system from Orqa? And the answer to that is no. Look, there is no digital here. Nothing has changed. However, what we do have is a new set of enterprise or pro level products from Orqa. Now, I'm going to go to the straight before we go back to the webpage on this. I did have a frankly lovely telephone conversation, Hangouts call, don't really know which way to talk about, label it, with Shojan over Orqa. I think that's how I say his name. I'm not 100% sure. Very real massive thank you from me to them. It's not recorded. I will not be discussing what we discussed other than this. But it was really great just to have a catch up with them on the events of the last few weeks. And just to be clear, I will not be talking about that. However, also what they've done here as well with these new products. Now, as I said, there was a lot of excitement around the image of that box. It isn't digital, okay? Orqa have publicly said they will bring a digital system to the table when they can compete with the best. That, I think, is pretty clearly DJI. I don't really think they're talking about HDZero or Avatar HD in that sense. The impression I get from speaking to them is that is DJI, and that's my personal opinion. However, what they are still doing is working on analog and their integration with systems. Now, what they have released this week is this. There's 3 new products. There is what is known as the FPV.Pro goggles, and I'm just going to click on that to get more info. Oh, no, it doesn't bring it up any bigger. Let me just zoom in on this page so you can see a bit better. So, we've got the new FPV Pro goggles. Now, just to be clear, these are not aimed for you, me, or anyone else. These are really aimed for the customer base that Orqa is already selling a lot of their goggles to, which is industrial, commercial, and maybe even military situations. Okay? These goggles have a single multipole LEMO connector, analog and HDMI on the back. Now, if you don't know what a LEMO connector is, it's a very rugged, round, sort of DIN type connector is the term I would use for those of us who've been around a very long time. It's an industrial connector. It's designed to give a 1 plug in and a 1 plug out. And that is really for commercial operation, industrial, military to be able to plug in. Ooh, my cup of tea has arrived. Let me just grab it 1 second. My lovely wife brought me a cup of tea. I was a bit late getting ready. Thank you. So these are really very much designed for the commercial and industrial. Okay. They have optional integrated 5.8 gigahertz rapid fire receiver. Now, when I spoke to Orqa about this, it isn't a standard receiver. It is a dedicated module for these goggles that you can plug in. We haven't seen a picture of it. It's got a simplified menu and navigation. That is really aimed for glove operation, actually. For people who don't really understand, it isn't for fingers, but there are situations where people are using these where they may have gloves on their hands. So that is why there is a simplified overall situation with regards to the control input. 37 degrees field of view. I know people have mentioned that. Look, again, this isn't for FPV as we know it. Wide operating voltage, HDMI in, composite video in, power, audio output, and mic. And overall, integrated OLED. And they are OLED displays, and they weigh 256 grams. So that's the goggles. Now, I'm going to be clear again. These are not designed for the FPV market. Just to give you a ballpark, and this is nothing more than a ballpark, if you're expecting these to be under 1,000 of anything, it's not going to happen. These are not aimed for general users. It is for the people who are using hobby goggle in environments that they are not designed for, and that's what it's for. Chances are, as a rough opinion, I reckon these will be $1,200 to $1,500 plus. That's what these are. They are, again, not for us. So that is the goggles. They're really an industrial version of their FPV goggles, and that's really what it is. Now, if we just hop over to everything else they released, and again, all of this is very much in this commercial or industrial use case. So we've got a Ghost Dual sub-gigahertz JR module, and this is the real interesting thing on this. If you notice this module, it's sub-gigahertz. It's not 868 or 900. This is for people who've probably got licenses to put things where we can't. If you notice, factory configurable on each of the two bands from 400 to 960 megs. So again, not for generic use. Second generation 200 hertz LoRa mode, which is very interesting. That would mean they're using the new LoRa chipset, and I will talk about that a bit more in the future. I'm going to try and make a video on that because there is some super interesting stuff around that. Factory configurable from 400 to 900 JRB module. So again, designed for very different situations. We've got a 4-in-1 ESC. Again, it's not really for us. It's for this commercial and industrial environment. And which is pretty standard, brushless 4-in-1, but it is NDAA compliant, and that's the real importance here. And then there's also a flight controller as well, which is STM32F405 based, Betaflight iNav. Look, this is very normal. The really interesting thing is, again, NDAA compliant. So it's designed and manufactured in the EU. So all these new products from Orqa, they're not really for us. They are for commercial operation, industrial use. Orqa are known, and let me just find the chat again. Orqa are known to be a company that have big military contracts, and that really is what these products are for. Instead of them selling out the FPV-1s, the FPV-1 pilots, to those customers, they've now got a dedicated goggle, more ruggedized, easier to use controls, built-in analog module if they want it, and that's really what the situation is. Now, I did have a chat with Orqa on a lot of subjects, and I'll be honest, there is 99% of them I can't talk about, but I will just mention one other thing, and that is with regards to the FPV-1s, the FPV-1 pilots, and the FPV-1 race, and the basic current situation as it is today with regards to the firmware, the recovery, and where users are at. Now, Orqa are still obviously doing a lot of stuff in the background, but as it stands today, they've released a couple of firmware versions, and it's probable that there's going to be a few more in the future to tidy everything up. But as it stands today, there is no reason a set of goggles should have to go back to Orqa to be unlocked. The processes they've got today, whether that be for the FPV-1s, the FPV-1 pilots, or the FPV-1 race, every set of goggles should be unlockable by the user with the methods they've now provided, which is fantastic. Now, they did openly commit to me that anyone who is going to struggle, they will pick them up, they will collect them, they will get them turned around, and they will get them back to you, and they will ensure, once again, that no customer will be affected in the long term or financially by this. And I think we have to be really fair to them because we're in the post-mortem stage of this issue that Orqa had now. And I suspect there's a lot more to come on this. Obviously, we've had the Lewis Rossman video. We've had the articles around the place. But I do genuinely think it's hard to criticize them for the actions they've taken. There is a lot that could be said of should any of this have happened in the first place. And I think a word I used this word in a video, and that is naivety. And I don't think they would argue with me on that. But again, I'm not going to go into that any further. What I would say, though, is genuinely that I find it hard to criticize them for what they've done to fix this. So, personally, as a company, I still have no problems recommend Orqa if people want to buy them. I'll be open and honest. My review of the FPV-1 pilots wasn't the most glowing. I did openly criticize those goggles for the issues I felt they had. Buttons too close to the surface, you couldn't easily feel them. Small field of view and the tunneling on the optics. But some of that is very specific to me as well. Genuinely, though, there are thousands of pilots who think they're fantastic goggles and use them daily, and no one can argue with that. And I really don't think in the long term that we can, as a community, hold this against them. And that's my personal thoughts. Genuinely, in the amount of time and what happened, it's crazy. And look, I would love to say more. I think we'll be able to know more in the future when maybe there is more info on all of this. You know, Orqa have openly said it was a time bomb. That's what they've said. And I suspect we will understand more of this as time goes on. And genuinely, it is frankly a bizarre situation, but it is one that I think they've handled quite well. And overall, I think it is what it is, and we can move on, really. That genuinely is an FPV community. Lewis Rossman made an interesting comment, and he said, would he trust any of these companies? And I think what we have to do is look at Orqa on the bigger scale of, we've had them in the industry for years. They've always looked after customers. I think it's fair to say that we have all criticized their marketing at times. But overall, the product has delivered. It has been solid. It has always been very good. Their customer service has been good. And whilst they have had this issue, they have resolved it in a very efficient and timely manner. And whilst we would all agree that it should never have happened in the first place, hindsight is a wonderful thing. And I do think we can probably move on from it. And just the very fact that people won't have to ship their goggles back really does make this situation much better overall. I know it's hitting people. There was a pilot flying with a pilot on my Discord today, I think it was, or yesterday, and he forgot about it and turned up and his goggles were locked out. Look, it's going to hurt people a little bit. It's going to happen. But Orqa have put a solution. Now, I just want to say a thank you to the guys over at Orqa for spending some time with me. It was a fantastic chat. I really do appreciate it. I hopefully we'll talk again in the future when there is something that we can talk about. And yeah, it really is as simple as that. Now, catching up on the chat, going back up and taking a sip of my tea. Hello, everyone. Hello, Robert. Any old Orqa goggles on sale? I haven't seen any. I haven't seen any effect of that. I love my Orqas for analog and DJI goggles too for digital. Yeah, and look, a lot of people love Orqas. Howdy from Germany. How are you? Ransomware does not... ransomware does not mention... I'm trying to understand what type wrote. Creator that after he blocked something, hacked. I'm not sure. Is that a genuine Butlins mug? Yes, it is a genuine Butlins mug. I have been many times with my kids. Good evening, Mountaineer, FPV Drone Life. Well done, Orqa, GMI says. Louis, question, Ian, is if Orqa will be around in 3 to 5 years? That's an interesting question. And I think actually the bigger question is not will Orqa be around in 3 to 5 years, is will analog FPV. And as I said, we had a super interesting conversation, and there's some stuff I don't want to go into what they said. But look, we're in a world today where there are 3 digital FPV systems and analog. And analog is without question on the dive. Okay? And if we look at what we now have, we have traditional manufacturers. So Fat Shark, Skyzone, Orqa. Really, that's it. Ishin, but most of their stuff's made by Skyzone. So we've got 3 traditional manufacturers. Now, the problems arise for these manufacturers, and this is all of them. Whilst Fat Shark have a deal, it appears, with Walksnail Cadex, they don't own a digital FPV system. They're selling a goggle that is compatible, but let's be honest here. That is not their goggle. And whilst Greg may have had a hand in the initial design, I think it's hard to say he didn't based on where the SD card slot is. it isn't a Fat Shark goggle. We don't really know where Fat Shark's relationship and Cadix's relationship starts or ends. What I would say is, though, do Cadix need Fat Shark to make a new set of goggles in the future? And the answer to that is, I don't think they do. Although, what Fat Shark have is the expertise in the optics, the expertise in the manufacturing. So, Fat Shark have a digital system that they don't own, just like they did before, where they had with HDZero. But let's remember what Fat Shark did with HDZero is basically crap all over it and leave. Is basically what my opinion is they did. They did we're selling all of these modules to make it cheaper to get into for $99. But no, we're not doing a fire sale. And it was a fire sale and they abandoned the system. So, yeah, that's just, yeah. We then have Orqa and SkyZone. And neither of these companies have digital systems in the bag. So the real question is, what are these going to do? What are these guys, these companies going to do moving forward? Now, Orca's interesting. They have a very big commercial, industrial, military arm. Does Orqa really need DIY FPV? I'm not sure now. Does it help sell product? Yes. But let's be realistic. If they're moving into that world with those type of goggles, they might not even need analog FPV in the DIY world. That leaves Fat Shark and SkyZone. SkyZone being a budget manufacturer that makes some really good goggles, but they are a company who are able to make budget goggles, would probably survive, and that really leaves Fat Shark in a very difficult position. And genuinely, I don't know what the future is for HDO2s. FPV1s, maybe. But Orqa pivoting into this industrial says a lot. What a Fat Shark got. They own Teal. They were part of Teal. They're being spun off now, but they'll probably sell products to them. So could they do what Orca's doing? Probably. Is it going to be enough to keep the company afloat? I genuinely don't know. So I think the real question is where analog FPV ends up, and we're left in an interesting situation there. I think SkyZone will be fine. I am astonished, genuinely, that SkyZone have not partnered with HDZero. I just find it insane that they haven't. I just don't understand it. I just genuinely don't understand it. SkyZone, I just don't get it. But let's see. Let's see what happens. You never know. You never know. So that's the situation with Orqa, and I also think that's the situation with analog. Now, obviously, we still have digital, and we have where the world's ending up on that, and that'll roll nicely in a minute into the next subject. We'll take some questions first, if there are any. 3 systems have got to survive, and actually, for those who are interested, I have a video coming tomorrow on one of the digital systems, and just to give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek, this is the thumbnail for that video, and it is a super interesting video, actually. It is that one there. So the third part in my thermal series will be taking a look at HDZero under the thermal camera, because we've done DJI, we've done Avatar HD, and it's now time to have a look at HDZero, because HDZero is rather unique because it isn't a two-way system, and it's easy to understand with Avatar and DJI why the receive side does generate heat, because that side is also transmitting back at the same power level as the air side is, whereas HDZero isn't. HDZero is a one-way receive system. So genuinely, what is going on? And you'll find out about that tomorrow. Just going back to the chat. Is there any cooler? Oh, there's plenty of cooling in HDZero, but we'll talk about that. Jello from Greece, thank you very much, my friend. Just catching up on the chat a minute. And having a drink of my tea at the same time. If you've got any questions on any of the Orqa stuff, please do let me know now before we move on. It's all fairly straightforward. The silence is deafening on that one. There we go. If only I use HDZero for Walksnail for ELRS, I need the antenna. If I only use HDZero for Walksnail, do I need the antennas on them? No. Not as far as I'm aware. No. There's no transmission there. There's no reason for 1 minute. Is Orqa doing HD? No. There is no digital. It is commercial and industrial use analog. A combined video transmitter and ghost receiver as well. Did I mention that? I don't know if I did. Did I show that? I didn't actually show that. Sorry. You've got this ghost dual sub-gigahertz ultimate hybrid. So it's a ghost receiver and a video transmitter in one. So what we've got is control uplink and video downlink in a single module. Jam resistant dual sub-gigahertz control link. Factory configurable again. 400 to 900 megs, 1.5 watt, 5.8 gigahertz video transmitter, single-sided PCB with CNC milled heatsink, second generation LoRa, all the usual stuff, Mavlink compatible, and NDAA compliant as well. But again, that was the bit in the metal casing that everyone thought might be digital. Analog will always have a place. It will. It will. Genuinely. It's just whether the high end of analog will continue. A little recap on Orqa. They've made some new goggles and transmitters for commercial industrial use. None of them are digital. They're designed for military, commercial, industrial applications. None of it is designed for the hobby user. They do have digital, but there's nothing in the space that we're in, as I understand it. Whether they have anything for military, who knows? Which one is better for me, Walksnail or DJI? Overall, DJI is better. And it's actually an interesting thing. This is an unscheduled piece of the strip. So I see a lot of talk about DJI versus Avatar. And look, Avatar is a really great product. And I think it is incredible what Walksnail, Carex, and Andy have been able to deliver. And I do see a lot of people ask, which one is going to be better in the long term? Which one is the best system? Who can improve it better? And the real simple is this. You have to understand that there is a fundamental difference in these two systems, okay? DJI pretty much completely own all of the tech in O3. So they make the chipset, they build the boards, they write the software. You have to compare that to what Avatar is. Avatar is using an off-the-shelf chipset, and they're basically tweaking software and controls that have been pre-made by the manufacturer of that chipset, like an SDK. And whilst they may have deeper access than that, there is a fundamental difference. It is basically like Apple with their A-series chipset in their iPhones. They create the chipset, they write the software, they lay the silicon, they literally have end-to-end control. An Avatar is like an Android smartphone with a Snapdragon chipset that Android is just being used on top of. There is a fundamental difference between the two. Now, does that mean that Avatar can't be as good as DJI? I think the bit to understand is Avatar, Cadex probably don't have the experience or the access to make it as good. You also have to understand that DJI 03 is in like every product they now make. They have 03, 03 Plus, 03 Pro. It is all the same hardware, right? DJI have spun this marketing around 03 into complete madness. Every DJI drone that we have seen today with 03 is using the very same P1 chipset. Nothing has changed. The real basics to understand is the difference between the original FPV system and 03 is that 03 has the additional media processor, the Eagle, the E3T, whereas the original FPV system doesn't. But the main chipset is the same. So all DJI have done is added more processing power. I've used this analogy before, but the real difference between DJI FPV and 03 is they've basically added in a graphics card. It's like adding in a 4090, a 4080, 3080 into your computer system. Whereas the original FPV system had onboard graphics. That's the easiest way to think about it. The main RF front end is identical. The P1 chipset is still there. That is the basic difference. Whereas Avatar are using something which is an off-the-shelf chipset. We know who makes it. It is the AR9002 by Artisan. I've put a huge write-up on this on repair.wiki. For those who haven't seen, I will show you now this. For those who don't know, I do quite a bit of updates on repair.wiki. It's been broke, so I haven't been able to do anything, but I think it's working again now. But if you go under here, and if you look under the Avatar system, there is here a document on the DJI P1 chipset where I wrote up a huge article on what it is, based on information from Junus and others. But I also did the same for the Walksnail Avatar goggles. So if we look under the goggles, and if you scroll down, there should be all of the information there for the chipset. It's all here. It's all what it is. They tried to hide it from us, but we found out. The community found out. And we believe it's the AR9201. Sorry, I couldn't think of the exact number. Now, on paper, this chipset is a little bit more powerful than the P1 from DJI. Probably the easiest way to think of this is it's a newer generation. One's AMD, one's Intel. I don't know. We can use that analogy. But the real fundamental difference is DJI own the whole stack, top to bottom. Silicon, firmware, all the software stack up to the end user experience. They control every element of it all the way up. Avatar is like Android and iOS, and that is the difference. It is an off-the-shelf chipset. They may have good access. They may not. We don't know. But they're turning knobs. They're fiddling with bits that they may not fully understand. DJI have had many, many, many years of experience on this. Louis has just asked an interesting question, and I'm looking forward to looking at that, Louis, myself. 03 Enterprise. I'm waiting to look at the teardowns. I think, Louis, I haven't confirmed this yet, but I think 03 Enterprise is basically the same as 03 Plus, but I think they've added encryption. I think from a hardware point of view, it's the same. And I tell you why. Because the systems it's compatible that we have seen are using basically the 03 chipset. And I think, I'm just going to take my jacket off, I'm getting hot. I think the 03 Enterprise is encrypted, fully encrypted, AES. And it adds a bit of latency, and I think that's just what it is. I think the hardware is the same. We'll know. It'll take about 3 months to fully know, though. It takes about 3 months for the hardware images to settle in, and we'll have a proper look. But yeah. Leonardo, kudos for the Android iPhone analogy in the graphics card one. Thank you. That's the easiest way to think about it. So, in the end, with regards to Avatar and DJI, in my opinion, and this is purely my opinion, I don't think Avatar will ever be as functionally perfect as DJI's. I just don't think it will. But none of that should take away from the fact of what Cadex have done is frankly astonishing. It is good enough for FPV. What that system would not be good enough for is consumer drones. And that's the real difference. If you look at the issues that Avatar HD has, those issues would just be a no-go on consumer drones like Mavics and things. The image compression, the way it behaves. We accept it in FPV because we understand that it's really hard to keep the latency down. But I don't think Avatar will ever be as good overall as DJI. But it probably doesn't have to be. And look, this is probably going to be quite an unpopular comment, but look, I obviously just did the review of that, you know, look, the Bamboo Labs printer. And look, there are, and I'll come on to the super chats in a minute. I have seen them. Thank you for them. I won't miss them. We'll come back to them in a moment. Right. The general motto of Chinese companies is to copy. So you take a product that's well established and done well in the marketplace and you copy it. Okay? So the classic example of that is Orqa right now. Orqa, look what DJI do, and then they release something which is functionally almost the same, but it doesn't work as well. It doesn't have the same main features, but it's close enough. But the idea is that it is good enough to tempt enough people to part with their money. If we think about when Avatar released, everyone got so obsessed that this is DJI. They've copied DJI. They've stole DJI's chipset. They've done it. The reason they did that was that system was intentionally made to look like DJI. Intentionally. They looked at what was the market-leading product, and we want to make it. And the way this does sort of work in China very much is, you know, here's this product. Can you make one that's the same, please? And it is literally replicate. And we're now seeing the same with the Bamboo. Creality are making the K1, which, look, let's not pretend it isn't a copy of the X1 Carbon. Now, before anyone says it, they were not the first to make Core XY printers. They were not the first to make printers like this. But what they did was produce a printer that was all in one in a package that would just worked with some new features. What Creality are now doing is basically just copying it. I don't know if you guys have seen this. I'll find the image. The menu system for the K1 is almost identical. And I have to be careful what I say because I am on the cusp of a huge rant about that printer. And I am on a massive cusp. But I'm trying not to upset Creality because I want them to send me one to review. But I am on the cusp of a massive rant. And that rant really isn't even at Creality. That rant is at people basically saying, oh, this is the best printer you can buy today. When number one, every single unit is basically a pre-release model that's been checked before it's left the factory. And even then, they still don't work properly. Number two, it isn't available in users' hands yet. And in fact, it's not going to be available for another month and a half to 2 months. And number three, the K1 Max is basically vaporware. It doesn't exist right now. So whilst... There we go. That's me upsetting Creality. I may have to buy it. Let me just find it. But look, what Creality have done is copied the printer. There's no question about that. It is without doubt, it is a copy. The menu system. I was sent a picture earlier, right? Let me just find this to show you. Because it's just... typical. So look, the menu system on the K1, the overall layout is basically identical. They've just copied the menu. And look, they do this on purpose. They want to take what is popular and replicate it, because if that's selling well, if ours looks the same, ours will sell well as well. Don't change anything, for God's sake, because people might not like it. And that's the mentality. And look, reality, oh, I forgot what the Autel, and let's be honest, Cadex with their FPV system. Now, let's not pretend that Cadex haven't done a good job overall, because they have really brought some competition to DJI. And actually, today, I would argue that for most general FPV, the Avatar system is better, because O3 has been specifically aimed really for filming. And what really lets O3 down is the fact that you can't change the lenses on the cameras. You just can't change the lens. And that isn't good for general FPV. Today, the O3 system is not the best option for people flying bandos, flying hard. It's just not. Because if you break a camera lens, you've got to change the whole camera. It's complete nonsense. DJI, if they really want to take over the whole FPV market again like they did last time, we need third-party cameras with normal lenses. It doesn't even have to be as good as the O3 camera, but it needs to have interchangeable lenses. But what Cadex have done is fitted Avatar into the gap that DJI have now left, because basically the standard system is coming to an end. I don't know how long you're going to get. You're not going to get good cameras for much longer, that's for sure. You're going to be left with what Runcam are offering, and there's nothing in the Runcam stable that's as good as what Cadex had. None of them are as good as the Nebula Pro. So DJI have left a big hole in that FPV world. And O3, they've moved O3 up the tier list. But what they haven't done really is put anything in that lower tier list. Now, they might just be waiting for all stock of the Vista to go, and maybe then we'll see something. But there is no hint that there is anything new coming for O3 that really fits into that segment. Why can't you change the lens? It is a proprietary type fixed lens. You can change it, you can get it out, but it isn't a standard FPV lens. Okay, I just want to catch up with the super chats a minute, because we had a few of them come in. I want to say a massive thank you for all of these. I really do. They're massively appreciated. So, Rab, how are you? Rabad, I think it is. Using Mavic 3 with RC Pro, we'd like better range for search and rescue in suburban areas in the US. Would you try either of these? Alien Tech or equivalent amplified antenna. Recommendations for the best out there. Okay, yeah, you are left in an awkward position. You're only left with antennas. Amplified antennas is complex on DJI because it's a two-way system. I can't really recommend them because I've never tried them. We'd like better range for search and rescue. It's hard. Directional antennas with the RC Pro would make a big difference. If you just went directionals, proper directional antennas. Also, forcing it into I don't know, can you force the Mavic 3 into 2.4 gigs mode? That would help a lot as well. There has been people with very, very good reports on the amplified antennas, but I have never tried them myself. I want to say thank you to WhatsApp for his $5 super chat as well. And Rabad added another one, a $10 super chat. Thank you. Any way to get the LT dongle to work in North America? No, I don't believe there is. Genuinely, I don't believe there's any way around it. DJI haven't officially released it out there. There's just no easy way to use it. I'd be really interested if you do go for those amplified antennas, let me know. There are companies who've made them. There is someone who reached out to me about them. Right, do me a favor, Robert. Rabad, get on my Discord or send me an email or a message and I'll put you in touch with some people. And he's paid again for another super chat at $4.99. And do I see the goggles 2 ever working with the Mavic 3 and RC Pro without the motion controller? Thank you, my friend. I don't know. Officially, I don't know on that. DJI's wording was a little concerning. Oh, obviously, you've got the workaround that works, which is if you turn the goggles on after you've taken off, they will connect. But I genuinely don't know if DJI are going to take that away. I'd like to think it will happen, but nothing is confirmed. What they haven't done, though, is released a firmware to stop that happening yet. And I thought they might have done that. The wording they put out through some of their KOLs was, don't do this, it's a mistake. And I expected DJI to close that down pretty quickly, but they haven't, which leaves a bit of hope they might leave it. I hope that answers your questions, my friend. Any idea if Goggles 2 will support FPV drone? I don't believe that will ever happen. If it was, it would have happened by now. I think the FPV drone is a dead product. Don't buy one. Don't do it. Put your money into something else. Don't bother. It's a good product, but don't buy it. That's my honest opinion. I'm not saying you're getting ripped off. It's just not crash proof. I saw some pictures on Facebook this week of someone who had one and destroyed it, and it's just horrific. Just horrific. He had to disarm in the air, and it literally blew apart. Just sold it. Look, as a purchase, it's not great. It's too fragile. It's too fragile. There is no blueprint for better HDZero optics either. Why is there no... There is no blueprint for better HDZero optics either. Why is there no questions about this? Tom T, I don't really understand what you mean. Can you explain a bit more? 03 Polar would be really nice. Yeah, agreed, because the low light on 03 is terrible. Okay, so whilst... better clarity. I don't think the optics are bad in the HDZero goggles. I think they're one of the best ones I've used. For me, the optics in the HDZero goggles are as good as any of the others. They're fine. The problem with optics is they're very subjective. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is 03, because we're starting to see rumblings of reports, and there's two separate issues here. Okay, so there's the issue number one with the RC link. Now, I have a video, and I stand by this video. Let me just find this on YouTube. And that stance is, I do not recommend anyone uses the DJI FPV Remote version 2, period. End of non-negotiable. The only time I will recommend you use that remote is if you're flying in a field where you can see the quad at all times. If you are flying anywhere else, if you're flying any remote situation where you could have a signal loss which would result in the loss of the aircraft beyond your control, do not use it. Whilst DJI have improved the RC link on 03 after my video where I criticized them, that it is still not safe. It still has some horrible behavior. Now, the remote I'm talking about on this is... I have mine, which is over there, which I mean there. There, that one there, DJI 03 FPV remote, it's got one problem. It's that video there. It's that grey remote. Do not use it, is my stance. Just don't use it unless you're flying in a field. Get yourself an Express ELRS remote. Get yourself a Boxer. Get yourself a TX16. Get yourself a Mambo. Get yourself anything. But don't use that remote for anything other than flying in a field. There are still horrible quirks in that remote's behavior on signal loss hand recovery and the way it just drops down its link. However, further to that, there is more and more comments, and I'd heard actually about this from someone I don't want to mention because he got himself into some trouble. But there is some behavior with O3 and its link recovery after signal loss. And that is, it doesn't remotely recover like the V1 system did. So for instance, if you fly out and you lose the link and you turn around, now obviously turning around is always going to be a potential problem because often your antenna is then behind the battery. Okay, and if you're not using very long antennas, so for instance, if you're not doing something like this, like that True RC I've got on there, you're going to have problems. Because if you think about this, when you're flying away from you, that antenna's there, nicely, all fine, line of sight. But when you bring the antenna around and come back, if your antenna's a short stubby, it's going to get blocked potentially by the battery, especially in return to home because the aircraft may not have enough bank angle anyway. However, the issue that has also been noticed is that O3 tends not to recover the link until very, very late or you've almost re-landed. And this is something that a few people have noticed. There were comments that they were passing stuff on to DJI for DJI asking for logs, but I'll be honest, whenever in my experience, sending logs to DJI is like peeing in the wind. It's just not really helping anything. But there is definitely something on O3 around its signal recovery. Now, a user has posted on FPV Live today about he lost the link until he changed flight mode. I'm trying to understand more about his build because I don't think that's really the same situation. But there is definitely there's definitely a behavior that isn't the same as the original FPV system. There's a behavior that means it just doesn't recover the link as well. And it is something you need to be aware of. So it's a hard one to really bring up with DJI because you need proof, we need logs, and we need a way of being able to demonstrate this. But there has been too many reports that I've seen of these problems. Now, what we don't know is what the overall cause is. What I know is how O3 works when the signal is lost. It doesn't enter low power mode like people have suggested. What happens is when O3 loses its signal, it goes into like a holding pattern. So the VTX continues to transmit, but a much smaller carrier, which makes sense because the idea is the smallest carrier will have the best penetration, and then it renegotiates when the signal is picked back up, and then it kicks in. So it's definitely not going into this low power state, but what it definitely isn't doing at times is fully recovering, and it is something you do need to be aware of. Now, I've just seen some comments in the chat on that. Let me just go down. The cat father, I was insisting on using it with O3. You said no. What I didn't count on is that the ear unit was getting hot and shut down. I don't fully understand what you mean, the cat father. Flight mode guy said it might be a loose wire or a bad solder joint. Yeah, that one didn't really make sense to me either. I must say I do love your rants. Thank you, my friend. I'm going to try not to. I'm trying not to get myself into trouble. I really want to let go on that one. Reviewers out there telling you this is the best printer. People are going out and buying a product based on reviews for a product that isn't even available yet. It's okay doing a review. It is okay, but you should be saying we really need to see, and especially the amount of K1s that are falling apart as well is horrific. So they're breaking everywhere. Anyway, back onto DJI. GMB lipos are great. Not in my experience. I think they're trash. And I won't buy one because I've had 2 go on fire. But that's my personal experience. I saw Louis' comment. I could compare with Zora. It's not about signal range, Louis. It's the behavior when it drops. So, for instance, in the original firmware, when the link dropped, it was horrific. I've got a video on it. I show it, the actual behavior on Betaflight. It was just horrible. It is still horrible today. For instance, when the video link drops, the RC link drops at the same time, regardless of signal level, and then will reconnect 3 to 5 seconds later. Yeah, I tend to only use I use China Hobby Lines mostly now. I've had two GMBs go up on the bench whilst charging at 1C. Non-damaged packs. Never again. There does seem to be a lot of variability in GMB's quality. This was a conversation we had on my Discord today, in fact. There are some people who really like GMB lipos, especially their higher quality ones. They seem to be good, but some of their cheap ones are horrific. Wouldn't GPS rescue save you in this situation? Potentially, yes. However, the problem in the early days was it wasn't triggering GPS rescue because it was doing random inputs to the RC. And this is why I just don't recommend it. Just don't do it. There is close... Look, if you're flying in a field, yes. If you're flying long range, don't use the DJI remote. Robbie Kenobi, HDZero is really grinding my gears. For plus 4 weeks, they've been telling my goggles will ship next week. Waiting 3 months. 3 months already. Yeah, look, it's taking time for the shipments. I think. Hello, Rabbit. How are you? Explaining what my public member role in the Discord mean. Oh, it's just a member that Are you on... When I set up my Discord, I created a load of roles, which were a waste of bloody time, to be honest. But what there's Patreon users Patreons of the channel have their own role, and then everyone else has a public member role. So I can't remember. Obviously, I can't remember every Patreon I've got. If you're a Patreon, you should have the Patreon tag. If you're not a Patreon, you should just have the public member tag. Everyone who's public should have the public member tag. But I'm not convinced it was assigning it correctly. It shouldn't change anything. When is that Foxeer HDZero VTX coming out? It is out now. It is finally available. I need to order one. I must misspelt it probably, yeah. I didn't realise that the spelling was wrong. But it's misspelt. Yeah, he's a public member, not a member. For those in Britain, member has a whole other team. I need to go and change that. There's spelling mistakes all over my Discord. Is there any way that I can connect DJI V1 to O3? No. Unfortunately not. Sorry. Did I miss the Orqa goggles of VTX news before I got here? Yes, you did. It is at the start. Go back once it's finished. So, in the end with O3, there's no answers to this right now. The only thing I would say is this. Potentially, you might be better using manual channel mode. There is some talk of the O3's behavior being better in manual channels and not in auto. So, if you are flying long range, I would possibly shove it in manual mode. That would be my best option to solve it. Where to buy an 03 cam? Ramdon Go. DJI only, I'm afraid. It is the DJI store. If we go onto the DJI's website and we go to the store, and if we search for 03, oh, just O, that ended up being. My keyboard's falling apart. If we search for 03, oh. 03, and then wait to see what comes up. Camera module, there we go. 89 quid for the camera module on its own. In dollars, 109. And that is the problem. I see many people with higher order numbers got this, but they are in the US. I know they are shipping weirdly. I can only really suggest, look, reaching out to HDZero and having a chat and saying, look, why haven't I had my goggles yet? And that's about the only thing I can recommend, and say, look, ship them. Or yeah, look, I can't really comment because, look, there's lots of people waiting. I've not been following the order number situation. I've not been keeping an eye on. I know there's been a delay. The lenses have delayed things again. They said next week. What I can say is, in my opinion, they're worth the wait. But look, there's been a lot of problems, and I've said this, and look, I think Carl is a fantastic guy. I genuinely do. I think HDZero have been doing some great work, but it's time to step up, and the products need to now be delivering. We need all of this firmware sorted. We need all of these production issues sorted. What we can't have is this rolling on and on and on, because it's getting really hard to recommend it when you're getting hardware that's coming out with problems, when you're getting analog problems, then you're getting 1080p mode was promised and it's still not here. And look, I think Carl is amazing. I genuinely class him as a bit of a friend in FPV. But we also need HDZero sorted now. Because, look, if the... I really should be ripping them apart, just like I did Avatar HD. And if I am going to be making a video on where are we at on FPV systems and the developments, there is no way I cannot say that HDZero appear to be falling behind a little bit on their development. They are struggling to tie things down. That needs to end. We need the goggles hardware to become solid and stable. We need the analog issues fixed once and for all. And we need the 1080p mode, and then things to move into this stable next step. Because many of us are recommending these products, but on the back of that, I have a responsibility to users as well. And look, the optics issue was an unforeseen. I don't have it on mine. It wasn't on any of the V1s. I believe it's only V2s. I'd also like to see the hardware stabilize as well. Look, I don't like this V1 and V2 stuff either. You know, in 2 production runs. What we also don't want is every production run of goggles to have a change. That can't happen either. Okay. There are some very minor differences between the V1 and V2s. But what we can't have is this. Look, I understand supply chip shortages are an issue. A lot of companies had to make changes. But what we don't want is like batch 3 to have something different, batch 4 to have something different. We need things to stabilize and the product to stabilize moving forward. And I think genuinely the product is fantastic. The goggle is great. I really do like them. But we also have to see it stabilize. I can't even get the emergency recovery to work. It did change with the new firmware update, depending on which one you did. Got an 03 lens in for repair at the moment. We'll see how it goes, what the repair fee is for the lens is. 50-kilometer flight. for the Avatar HD. Yeah, there is no range limit on Avatar HD. There's no range limit on HDZero, and there's a 23.4 kilometer range limit on 03. Or 30 kilometers with a Vista. Wi-Fi crapping out for me. I've not tried the Wi-Fi yet. What every manufacturer in FPV has to be careful of is not alienating its user base with changes all of the time. 30 on the Vista on 03, 30. Manufacturers have to be careful not to keep alienating its users. So, you release a product, and that's batch 1. Now, if you then, in batch 2, make some changes that adds a couple of little features that you think, oh, I can do this while we do the next batch. Whilst that's good to do at times, you've sometimes got to just not do it so you don't piss off the people who have bought the batch ones. It's always easy to keep making incremental improvements, but sometimes you've actually not got to do it. Sometimes you've got to go, you know what? No, this is set in stone. This is what this is getting. And I'm going to release a version 2 in a year, 18 months' time. Because whilst the changes for the V1, or the batch 1 and the batch 2 goggles are minimal, the fact you could turn the analog bay off in the menu, that's actually quite handy. And batch 1 users are like, well, I didn't get that. And look, little stuff like that. Sometimes you're better not doing it. Just because you don't alienate the people who bought the first ones. And it is a strange thing. But I think HDZero have done a great job. I just really want to see it settle now. And look, we've got the video coming out tomorrow. Just catching back up in the chat. Going to ask, what quad's laying on the bench in the minute? Something to show GPS stuff. No, that was just me showing HDZero with a long antenna. DLMI Driss, how are you? Is it possible to make 03 and Vista work both with goggles V2 and on what firmware? So you can use 03 and Vista on a set of V2s, but they have to be on different firmwares and you have to swap the modes. You can't have the Vista on the version 2 goggles in the 03 mode. You have to have the Vista on the not latest firmware. And look, let's just bring that up because it's a bloody mess. If you go to downloads, and if we actually look at the release notes, so you will have to have the Vista on firmware version 01.00.06 or 08 or earlier. It doesn't have to be 08, it can be earlier, but that firmware or earlier to work on the V2s and the 03 on the latest firmware. What you can't do is use this firmware for the Vista with the V2 goggles. Now, I'm going to do a video on this, funny enough, because it is a subject people are still getting confused over. I get a lot of questions on this. What you will, though, still have is if you do that, you will lose the bindings between the modes. There is a mod that is available for WTFOS, which will keep the bindings for the Vista side of things, but you will still lose the bindings on 03. Unfortunately. AV physics, 100% on everything you said about HDZero stabilizing. Yeah, I really like the system. It's not my preferred flying FPV system. Genuinely, it isn't. That's just the way it is. I prefer DJI 03 predominantly. I like a shiny looking sparkly thing more than it being fast. Look, I'm not a great pilot. That's it. End of. But I still think it's got a lot of potential. I fly them all to ensure that I am fully aware of how they work and how they behave. I do like the 90 frames a second mode. I'm really interested in the HDZero 1080p mode. I really am. That's a mode I'm really looking forward to. But look, I think it's hard to talk about the system in a positive manner right now when issues are not fixed. And it's not like they're trying. I know they're trying. I know Carl is trying. But there's a point where you go, well, it just needs to happen now. Just came in from work. How are you? I can't wait for DJI to make their products forcibly obsolete. DJI doesn't really do it. Look, we can criticize DJI for many things, right? Today, we are 4 years plus on from the original FPV system, yet everything still works. Now, someone did say earlier about why doesn't RunCam make cameras as good as the Nebula Pro? And genuinely, I don't know. Genuinely, I don't know. What I do know is the chipset that DJI used in their camera, the AP1302 off the top of my head, the DSP, I think that's the right number. That chipset is in the Nebula Pro. That chipset is in the DJI camera. And all the 120 frames a second cameras. That is not in the RunCam. Now, the question is that chipset no longer available? And if that's the case, that could be the problem. That could be the problem. Longevity-wise, yes, the current DJI system is 4 years old. You can still get vistas. You can still get cameras. If we go on RunCam, and we will come on to GPS in a minute. And if we go on to Cadex as well, because I don't know what Cadex are, their stock levels are like at the moment. So Cadex still have the Vista kit listed, you see. Look at this. I know what they had was what was in stock. Nebula Pro, you can still get it today. I would be ordering as many of these as I could get if I flew the old system. I don't. I fly the new one now. You can still get the Nebula Pro. That, you know, so we can still get that. It is, they've still got vistas, look. Have they still got vistas? They do. You can still get vistas from Cadex. It is surprising. It really is surprising that you can still get these. So look, stock is still there. Some isn't. So they're gone. They're gone. But this is all in. This is all still there. So get it while you can, folks. With regards to the RunCam, obviously RunCam are still selling the Wasp, but it's not a great camera. It doesn't have all of the same features, but it is available. But it doesn't have the AP1302 chipset. Still a lot of stock for now. The problem with stock will be, though, it will be there until it's not. Brandon Beans, DJI still want to make money. I bet they're still supplying Cadex. That is a super interesting question. Are DJI still supplying Cadex? That is a super interesting question. I'm going to try and find out. That I wonder. I wonder if they managed to do a deal. No one else seems to care about low lights. No, agreed. Cadex do good low light cameras. Hyped to get my HDZero goggles, but my stack and batteries are taking a whole lot of time from China. I hope they get here before June. AVI Physics said, I know we spoke about this. I wish they had just released a simple proprietary HDZero analog VRX based on what they knew and worked on the event at VRX. Yeah, I agree. I think Carl has made his own life very difficult trying to support bloody rapid fire fusion and all of the quirks that they have. And then you've got the bloody other ones from Sky Zone and all of those issues as well. Okay, so we're going to catch up next on one other thing, and this isn't going to be a long one, actually, but I do need to talk about this, and the quad isn't in you, but I am going to do a quick video on this. In my review for the IH3, which is the iFlight Bind and Fly quad, I talked about how poor the GPS performance was and how bad it was and taking to get lock. And in that review, and let me just find that on YouTube, I actually showed it taking 6 to 7 minutes to get lock. Now, it turns out, and that's that video. Now, it turns out that is actually an issue in Betaflight, and part of that was caused by me. Because when I got the quad, I did something that I'm now saying, and iFlight is saying people shouldn't do, and that is, I upgraded the firmware to 4.4. I did that intentionally. I restored all the presets. I didn't have problems. That wasn't an issue. But I did it because I wanted the 4.4 GPS performance. And whilst I know there are a few issues in it, I'm still of the opinion that 4.4 is better than 4.3. Now, we do have 4.5 around the corner. But what I did show in this video was how long the GPS lock took. And if you look here, this was the bit of the video where I showed it. And you can see we're up to 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes nearly. There you go. And it just seemed to take forever. Now, what I ended up doing then to get around this was folding the antenna out of the way and trying to get lock. And then I demonstrated that, which happened really quickly. You can see it was already 5 sats instantly. Now, this actually may have been my own fault because I'd installed 4.4, and it turns out that there is an issue in 4.4 where the GPS settings are not being correctly applied in Betaflight. Now, for those who don't really understand what I mean by this is this. GPS modules come pre-configured from the factory, but they have the ability to receive commands over the UART. So a startup command and a set of parameters is the easiest term. So Betaflight, iNav, ArduPilot, all of these software have the ability to pre-configure the GPS on boot. So they'll turn up, they'll fire up, and they'll say, actually, I want you to use these settings. So those settings could be the refresh rate, the UART speed, the ability to deal with the almanac, and all of the other stuff. Now, it turns out between the M8s and 10s, U-blocks have changed the communication protocol on some parts. And what happens is, if some parts are ignored, it's all ignored, and it doesn't work. And that is potentially what the issue was in my video. On ArduPilot, we do send a config at startup. Yes, and the issue is the Betaflight config is being ignored by the M10s compared to the M8s because there's an error, because the M10 has made some changes and it ignores the whole config. Now, this may have resulted in why I was getting that very long GPS lock. Now, Bardwell has done a video on this, but iFlight have also put out a walkthrough of a process that was actually done by one of the Betaflight developers. The man is even here. I'm going to let him say who I am. He should still be here. He gave me a super chat earlier, Rabbit Ambulance. Sorry, did I just say his name? I believe it is him who actually made the file. And iFlight have put out the process. Now, there's two things that they show on this, right? They're actually showing iFlight. I'm just trying to find M10 GPS settings. Now, there's a couple of things that they are saying to do. One of them I don't really think people should or need to do, and that is the offline GPS now bit, because that's only going to last like 30 days. But what there is in this process, and this isn't quite easy to see, but what this is manually doing the configuration for the GPS module. And you're setting it to 10 hertz, you're setting it to use the almanac, and you're setting it to manual baud rate. And this should solve the overall issues with the M10s. Now, the plan is that Betaflight will fix this in 4.5. There should be a load of other changes in 4.5 as well. I think the GPS issues will be fixed in 4.5 to return to home issues. The gentleman spent a huge amount of time on it. But if you've got an M10 and you're using 4.4, you really should apply these settings. 4.42 might have the fix as well. Yeah, I think there's little changes as they've moved along. Look, I got one, but 4.5 Zulu has fixed it. Yeah, so what I now need to do is go out and retest this. But it's something I wanted to highlight because I may have been unfair in that review in saying the GPS lock was being affected by the O3 air unit. And I just wanted to mention that. And look, I'm probably going to do a video on has it improved it. I might wait for the new Betaflight release. Watch JB's video. Yeah, JB has an overview on it. Like Betaflight is JB's world. I don't really cover Betaflight as such, but I want to cover this as I have mentioned this or demonstrated this issue in a review. And as a result of that, I need to be fair to iFlight as well. I still find it interesting that moving the O3 antenna instantly solved it, and I need to try more. But that might have been a result of it only running at 1 hertz. And that could have been the reason. The big change in the settings is you're changing it from 1 hertz to 10 hertz. You're changing it to allow it to use the satellite almanac data, and you're setting it to manual baud rate. Installing the GPS now offline, yet you don't need to do that token. You can do it, and you'll get a benefit for like a period of time, as JB said in his video. And if you want the very quickest GPS, you can always connect it back up and just keep doing that. But that's not a feature most people use. You don't need that. Most people don't need that. But I did want to cover it, and it is a weird issue. Hopefully Betaflight will have this fixed. I don't know if this affects ArdriPilot or iNav. I don't know. Did they not have the same configuration options? I don't know what it was. Ian, if a GPS is connected to an FC software that has a good config, does the fix stick? Yes, because it's ignored. Because apparently what is happening is this. The config is completely ignored if any element is bad. And that is what's happening in Betaflight. So something is changed in the uBlocks config. That means it's ignoring all of it. So you're then manually setting it. But what will then happen with the future Betaflight is, I'm guessing, when the config is corrected and working properly, it'll just overwrite what you've done here as well. I'll wait for the 4.2 version or the fix. Yeah, exactly. 4.42. Yeah. It's ignoring it all as it stands today, and that's the problem. It isn't even applying any of it. And now it works. Almac FPV, I had an issue to get the M10 GPS, had the U set and the thing, and now it all works. Yeah. I don't know the iNav and Ardra situation. That's the problem. But clearly uBlock's changed something in the config. Interesting. I think it's dependent on the situation. That's the problem, isn't it? You know, it is dependent on the situation and everyone. Mine as well strapped to the bat. Yeah, and look, hopefully it's a silly issue. Ah, that's interesting. So Ardra Pilot had already done it. There you go. I hadn't looked yet myself. See, and that's the funny thing. I crashed my FPV drone with an O3E unit, flew it back with a broken prop, had bad vibrations, and now the O3 cam is out of focus. What did I shake loose? The lens, most likely. The lens isn't the tightest in O3. You're going to need to tear the camera down. Now, I do have a teardown video on O3 where I do show you the camera. It's most likely the camera lens has come loose. It isn't particularly hard. Take the back cover off the camera. You will then, once the back cover is removed, have 4 screws. You can remove them and withdraw the camera module from inside, and you'll probably find it's come loose. I can't remember, do I have images for the camera front on repair.wiki? Let me just have a look. DJI O3. No, I've got the back of the camera. So when you take the back off, you remove these 4 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you can withdraw the camera from the housing. Chances are the lens has come loose. A little late, Brutus. I made in the He-Wing T1 Ranger this evening. Lovely little plane. It really is, yeah. I'm going to fly mine this week. The weather's been quite good, so I'm going to fly mine this week if I can. I need to redo the iNav tune because, as always, you know, what really bugs me is that process of having to properly disarm to save the iNav tune. In the process at the end, I just picked the plane up and disconnected the battery and then didn't save the tune. What a moron. I fly the other side of the river to you, Ian. Today was gorgeous, if a bit windy. It was very windy. Which river? It was very windy today. I actually went to fly today, and I turned it down. I turned up to the field and went. I wanted to. I actually haven't flown the G4 based quad yet, and I was going to do it today, and it was just too windy. A little bit too windy. Not for me to do PID tuning. Yeah, I often forget the awkward stick to every time. Just does my nut in. I wish you could just have a button. Save. Because haven't you got to land and not disarm? I can't remember what it is on iNav. I need to get it back out, and I'm going to have to The problem is, I don't fly iNav enough to actually remember how any of it works. So now I'm going to have to read back up around how auto-tune works and then do it again. What I can't remember is, as well, does it log the auto-tune data and I could just go in and put the PIDs in manually? I haven't tried it yet, Craig. I intended to do it today, but it was just too windy. It was surprisingly windy here today. It was surprisingly windy. I turned up the field and I was like, Jesus, it's quite on the coast. And it was like, oof, that's why I prefer hydroplane. Yeah, I can't remember what it is on iNav. I'll have to go and reread it. That's why I prefer hydroplane. Yeah. I need to redo it. Right. If you guys have got any questions, please do put them in the chat. We'll go for a little bit longer, not much longer. Please do give this stream a like as well. Now, I'm gonna do a little bit of shilling quickly. For those who don't know, I do have a Patreon. If you'd like to consider supporting the channel, it is quite easy to find. I'm doing a Bardwell. Look at this. Can't even remember my own Patreon number, my Patreon page, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Here, where is it? Let me find it. There it is. Just found it. I do have a Patreon page. If you're interested in supporting the channel, it is available. I've even put a $2 option on there now because people from the US were asking about it. I've also got a Discord server, if you don't know as well. Please do consider coming on and saying hello. We have all sorts of mad discussions on there when I get some spare time. Today we were talking about battery testing. It was rather interesting. But I also rant about 3D printers and other stuff as well. So if you're interested, please do check out my Discord server as well. There is a link to it there. There are some amazing people on there. What I don't do is keep an eye on it on the live streams because I'm a terrible YouTuber. But there are some amazing people there, so please do consider checking that out as well. There you go. That's the shilling done. Just hopping back to the questions. I've lost it. Where is it? Patreon should get recognition in chat. Maybe a different color handle names. I don't know how we do that on YouTube. Can you do that on YouTube? I don't know. I'll have to find out. I'm still iNav for planes, but switching to Ardra for long-range quads. Don't blame you. Just about to receive my bind and fly. Purchase 1400 mAh batteries. How many more minutes will I get if I go 1550s? Not a lot. There's not a lot between them. I don't know if you can highlight Patreon users on YouTube. What I do know is you are highlighted on the Discord server. Well, you should be if you follow that process. And I want to say thank you to all of my patrons. You're amazing. Just looking down the chat. Not sure you'd get another circuit out of an extra 150 mAh. No, you're not going to get a lot. I'll be honest. Some of the ratings on packs are... That was part of the conversation we had today. Battery testing and understanding how good some of these batteries really are. And we've come up with an idea. It would be quite a task to do, to set up a test bench for this. But it would be super interesting and almost actually have a test bench with... I'm not going to go into it here. It'll be on the Discord server if you want to find it. But it was very interesting. Yeah, there was. And that's what sparked the conversation. There was battery testing for planks, but there really isn't anything for FPV. Yeah, I'm far more comfortable with Ardra. I found a great app recently, UAV Forecast. Very good. Been around a very long time. I use that as a commercial operator as well. Just to put you guys in the loop. And by the way, the Radiomaster Boxer is a great radio, but it's super big. But it also feels good in my hands. It's not that big compared to the TX16, but it is a phenomenal radio. And there is a Boxer video coming out this week because, for those who don't know, I haven't got it in here. It's in the car. I put a video out 2 weeks ago about just updates on the Boxer. And what I said in it was about the only thing I don't like are the stick ends that come on the AG01s. So Radiomaster reached out and went, hey, we're going to send you some stick ends as you complained. And they sent me the new Sticky 360 stick end. So I've done a quick video on that. It is, frankly, a shameless plug for the fact that Radiomaster sent me them for free. Although I did have to pay for the import duties. I still did better out of the deal because there was some other stuff in there as well, I promise you that. But it is frankly a shameless plug at the fact that Radiomaster did send me the Sticky 360 ends and I did a quick video on it, and they managed to get another video out of me for doing it. So thank you, Radiomaster. Nicely played. Did we talk about how much Bruce dislikes YouTube Shorts? No, and I've almost stopped doing them. I did a couple because there was a few things I felt worked out. But I'm not going to be doing a lot of shorts. It's not the content for me. You don't need to see me dancing. Maybe a little bit on 3D printing. Have I tried yet the iFlight foam for the V2s for the Goggles 2 and Integra? No, they are en route. I believe Patrick has sent my order. I have bought them. I have paid for them. And I am waiting for them. Yeah, what annoys me about iNav is just the quirks. There are some really weird quirks in iNav. A lot of times the higher internal impedance beats out capacity gains for higher capacity packs at the same weight. Yes, it does. 03 sub 250 gram build. We saw the 2S saw the development build a few weeks ago. 03 sub 250 gram build equals 2S saw the development build a few weeks ago. I'm not doing one. I don't know who is. Can you see live feed of flights on a bind and fly? Can you see live feed of flights on a bind and fly? If you buy an 03 bind and fly, you connect it to the goggles as you would before. We all hate shorts, but they work with a key short attention span demographics. Yeah, I've done some stuff with the 3D printer on there, and that was okay. But I'm not going to be doing a huge amount of shorts. Not going to happen. You're not going to see me dancing. Has Bardwell started dancing on shorts yet? Yeah, that's the thing. It is small pieces of information, and it's how you disseminate that. I find it very hard to keep videos below 20 minutes. Keeping something below a minute or 30 seconds, there's very little chance for me. Yeah, I agree, AVI physics. Definitely iNav P are a pain. I'm not even repeating what Wes has just said. JB's a proper YouTuber. That's the reason I asked. So he's probably doing shorts. I will say something on that, actually. JB put out a video this week, and I think this video, and this will be the last topic I cover, could be controversial. Is he going to say something bad about Bardwell? JB put out a video this week, and I want to find it. Let me find it. Let me find it. And I'm trying to remember which one it was. And I actually think... I think it was this M10 one. This one. Let me just check. I just want to check which one it was. No, it wasn't. Sorry, I'm talking crap. It's this video on this backpack, if you haven't seen it, which is the HDLRC FPV backpack. And look, ignore, we're going to have to get through the ad. And I'm not going to show all the video, you know, go watch it on JB's channel. But genuinely, I think this video was the pinnacle of how to make a review. Genuinely, this video, ignoring the product, right, and ignoring the content, he absolutely nailed every element of this video. And I'm talking about the presentation, the bits he shows, what he talks about, and the information that he says to go. Like, I've got videos on this. He literally, this in my opinion, as like a person that does this as well, I watched this video and I sat down and just went, wow. It genuinely, from a creative point of view, from a creator delivering information, I think this is as good as it gets, period. Genuinely. Might not be the shiniest video, not the sparkliest, not the nicest background. You know, it's not about that. It's about the message and delivering the content. And overall, he absolutely nailed it. And I watched that video and I just went, you are seeing JB at his peak here. The overall, just the way he laid the data out, what he showed you, what he talked about, what he gave you his opinions on, what he said was good, what was bad, and then he talked about it compared to other backpacks. Genuinely, I absolutely think it was a phenomenal demonstration of how to make a product review. And yeah, on another level, that video really was, genuinely was. The backpack is not very good. That's the outcome of the review if you want to know it. I still love the Pit Stop Pro. I think the Pit Stop Pro is amazing. That's what I've got. But genuinely, I think it was very, very good. And it just, as someone who does this, I watched that and went, wow, you know. And look, I know JB scripts his videos. I know he puts a lot of time in. He makes it look easy these days. I don't script. Look, let me share with you some insights to this channel, right? Everything I'm going to say is in here. And I figure it out as I go along. I don't script it. I don't get time to script it. I think about it. I have a thought of where I want to go. And that's why my content really isn't very good, in the sense of it doesn't have a start and an end message. And I think what JB is very good at is create. Look, if you want to make the really good content, you need to bring the person along on a journey. You start with a story and you end on it. I don't do that. I tend to drop information in bulk. Verbally vomit information at you is tending to be the term I will use. And you'll see that tomorrow with the HDZero video. You know, I talk about, you know, I haven't done this, so let's go do it. It's not that sort of storytelling content, whereas JB does a very good arc. And yeah, I just felt it was a phenomenal demonstration of how you do a review as a creator. And that's just an opinion. Just an opinion on that. That's all. The product, I don't think, was very good. I don't think the bag looked very good. Amazing. HDZero video at the start. So yes, that was just my thoughts. I will say that it's JB's full-time job. You may, as you may remember, full-time job. Yeah. It just, I watch some stuff every now and again, and I just, you know, I see the stuff that I know is bad in a video and good. And I just saw that and I just watched it and I just sat down and just went, at the end, I just went, that was up there with the very best he's done from a message, from a layout, from a delivery point of view. Genuinely. And look, I don't agree with everything JB does. I don't know JB. I don't talk to him very often. We've had a couple of messages. He's not a person I would class as a friend. I don't speak to him very often. We've had some very limited conversations in the past. I generally don't owe him anything. But I just thought, wow, that was a review. And I actually find it interesting watching other creators and how they deliver it as well. For me, it's like, okay, that works. And perhaps I do need to bring a story arc into my content more often. And yeah, I've got to stop verbally vomiting information at you, is probably the term I'll use. And that's where the live streams are better, because the live streams actually, you get me more than the data. And whether you guys like this or not, I don't know. The live streams actually get some really good viewerships. And I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who does watch the live streams, because we do get a lot of views after the fact. And I do really appreciate that. And look, I do take that Gamers Nexus approach to, I'm going to just say how it is. And if I piss off a manufacturer, frankly, fuck them, because that's how it is. Pardon the French, but sorry, I don't care. I really don't. And actually, I'm going to finish up on this, actually. This will be the last subject. And look, I've been talking a bit on the channel in the last few weeks, on my Discord about affiliate links, because people have asked me, and I do actually have a few companies I use affiliate links with. Radio Master. I have just agreed to take links for Bamboo. Now, I've done that very cautiously, and I haven't pushed it, and I'm not pushing it. And look, I completely understand people think that if you put affiliate link on a review, you're basically biased. Now, I think that's complete bullshit, frankly. If you think my opinion is swayed by 3 or 5% of a sale on £1,000 product, so let's just say it's 3%, which is what, 30 quid. How many of them do you think will sell? I'm not a channel that's going to sell 10 printers. 300 quid. I don't care if it's 300 quid. I would never sell my soul to keep a manufacturer happy. I don't care. If they want to work with us, they will. If they don't, they don't. It's not my problem. What you have to be is true to yourself and honest, and an affiliate link doesn't change that. And don't worry, I'm not putting affiliate links on all my videos. That's not happening. But I have now put a list of affiliate links that I have on my Discord server. So if people want to use them, they can. I do use them with Radio Master because I think Radio Master is an outstanding company. And I know they sort problems out. But if they don't, my God, they'll get it from me as well. And it'll be coming for them full freight train, as it has DJI, as it has anyone else. And it's the same with any manufacturer. Bad consumer behavior gets the outcome it gets, let's just say. But you do see a lot of comments around affiliate links, and what you've always got to be doing is open and honest, and you have to go, you know what, look, and I say this in the Radio Master review, actually, there is an affiliate link to these stick ends. Use it if you want, don't if you don't. I will receive something. I don't care. You have to be fair with it. What I'm not going to do is cover every video in affiliate links. That's never happening. But there are certain vendors I trust enough to be able to say, you know what, I think they bring good value. I think they bring a good product. And I think it brings a benefit to me and them. And that's where I use them. But at the moment, they are only on the Discord server. The Radio Master ones are in that. But look, so yeah, you know, look, you've always got to be fair and reasonable. And when you mess up, my God, have you got to own it. And as I got something completely wrong last year, and I had a go at Sky Zone, and I issued a public apology because I messed up. Oh, I was wrong. I was so wrong. And if you get it wrong, you got to own it. It's that simple. I don't quite go Ken Dobo mad. I think Ken goes a little. I spoke to Ken this week, and I like Ken a lot. Ken is genuinely one of these people I genuinely like. I don't quite go Ken level of rah. But you've seen the odd rant from me. Go back to, if you really want to see me rant, for anyone who was there live, go back to the Avatar vid. You don't get to know. If you want to see me rant, go back to You Don't Get to Know. Never go full Ken. That's a great. Never go full Dobo. Yeah. That's you never go full Dobo. Everyone knows that. I have to be very careful of that connotation. But yeah, you never go full domo. Oh yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Learn bed leveling. I'm in the middle of finishing a review on the Sidewinder X2, and I forgot what manual bed leveling is like. It's been a frankly pain in the ass. I'll be honest. Good for a meme. Never go dobo. I do like Ken. Ken, I wish you all the best, my friend. I hope you're well. So Avatar FPV isn't DJI. No, it is not. Trying to unlock FCC on the V2s with FPV drone. What is the best way? There was that original file for that. That still works, I believe, but I haven't got one to test. I run, yeah, E3D mod. Yeah, I do as well. Drone hacks. Yeah, use drone hacks. Drone hacks will sort you out. I couldn't think what it was called. Use the drone hacks mod. Right. I'm going to wrap this one up. I want to say a thank you to everyone for spending some time with me. There's been a lot of people here tonight because JB was not streaming and a few others. As I said earlier, I want to say a massive thank you to all of my patrons. I would not be able to do this without your support. If you're interested in supporting us, please do consider checking it out. More than anything, though, I want to say a thank you to all of the people who donated via the Super Chats tonight. You are all amazing. I just want to make sure I haven't missed any. Rabbit Ambulance was the last one. You madman donating $20. Thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. But thank you all for your time. Thank you all for joining me on a Sunday night. I really do appreciate it. It's not just about me. It's about you guys. It's about having a chat. It's about trying to share knowledge. And if we all do that, the world will be a better place. Look after yourselves. Stay safe. We should be back same time, same place next week. And I will speak to you guys soon. Later.